Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Alex Miskovic from Terra, Balcanica. In this interview, we discuss what's happening with the gold market. We also get into the challenges of raising money for an exploration stage company in the Canadian junior markets. We also touch on uranium and why Alex is excited about the uranium market, along with the recent decision by the US government to ban Russian uranium imports. And we also get into Terra Balcanica's recent drill results, how the company decided to take on a property in Saskatchewan focused on uranium, and what investors can expect for the remainder of 2024. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Alex, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good afternoon, Steve. Thank you for having me on.
So I thought we'd talk a little bit about the general macro environment for commodities and what's happening in the world to start. And one of the big headlines this year has been gold. It's had what I would call an outstanding start to the year. It's recently hit over $2,400 on the spot market, but recently given back some of those gains. But overall on the year, I think it has been an outstanding year for the shiny metal. What's your read on the gold market right now?
Yeah, I think it's long overdue. I think for whatever reason, we haven't seen gold rally to the levels that it is right now. And even now, I would say it's undervalued. Previously, I think it's, as I said, long overdue. I think that the true test on one hand and the testament to the, shall I call it, bull market in terms of gold will really be the longevity of this run. If you see this spill over in Q3 and maintain these levels, then I think we can genuinely speak of the overall reversal in the trend that's, again, as I say, been suppressed for an unreasonable amount of time. What's interesting from my standpoint, obviously, being a CEO of a company that has both gold and silver assets in Europe, is how silver will behave in correlation to gold. Recently, we've seen also increases. Sometimes that's not entirely correlated, but many people do speak of upcoming bull market in terms of silver as well. So that's going to be very interesting to see whether the ratio is maintained, or some people even say that silver might surpass the expectations relative to gold in the upcoming months as well.
I know that you aren't here to talk about geopolitics, and that's always a bit of a asking you to take out a crystal ball and say what's going to happen in the world. But still, I mean, you are running a exploration company in Eastern Europe, and there is a lot of tensions and drama in that side of the world. But yeah, I'm just going to sort of maybe go a little bit bigger picture here when I look at what's happening around the world, whether we're talking about Russia walking into Ukraine, or what's happened between Israel and Iran, or what feels like a likely probability that China is eventually going to walk into Taiwan. Do you think that there is an effort by various countries from, I guess we could say, the East to dethrone the US dollar as the world's reserve currency?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the intent. I think that American level of debt and the lack of fiscal responsibility has to some extent contributed to that. I mean, obviously there's forces from the outside, but if you see how quickly in the last 2.5 decades or so, dollar has become, suppressed by the level of foreign and internal debt in the United States. And I mean, what's intrinsic value, except for the fact that it is a currency for trading oil and petroleum products, as well as the reserve currency of the world. Well, I think this is where the attempt is being made. Now, how successful this is going to be by the countries of BRICS, I'm not really sure. When it comes to the geopolitical situation in the world, I would like to be, on one hand, positive and think that we'll soon come out of all of this turmoil, that the situation in Gaza will calm down in the next month or two, that the war in Ukraine will end up in, at the negotiating table within the next 2-3 months. But it doesn't look that way, especially not in Ukraine. I think in Ukraine we are in there for a long haul, and it doesn't look like any side is going to back off that easily. I think Russia has now committed fully to this thing. I think its quote unquote reputation is at stake. And I think they're going to do whatever it takes to achieve whatever they can call a victory. By the same token, Ukrainians are fighting existential fight. And that's all happening about 1,000 kilometers away from where we operate. So obviously, on the other hand, it is, I think, to some extent reflected in the price of especially gold as a hedge against uncertainty. And this global uncertainty, I think, will be added fuel to the fire of increased gold prices. So that's, I guess, good on one hand. I hate to see this be the reason for that. But on the other hand, I also must say that in a kind of a bizarre way, Eastern Europe, from the standpoint of Serbia and Bosnia, even though there's only one country between Ukraine and Serbia, and that's Romania, you actually don't feel the war. People are still going on about their regular life. I mean, I would dare to say that people in Western Ukraine don't feel the war either. I mean, they do, of course, because they're occasionally under the threat of Russian incoming aerial bombardment. But for the most part, yes, prices have elevated in the last 2 years. I can see that on the price of drilling that we incur in the Balkans, which is about 25% across the board. Diesel is more expensive, gasoline, things like that, food. But in terms of supply chains being interrupted, I don't think that Europe is still feeling the full burden of what is really now becoming, or it has a threat of becoming, a regional war.
So I want to shift the conversation to talking a little bit about how the challenges of running an exploration company that's listed in the Canadian junior markets, and just what feels like a lack of investors to actually go to. I mean, I know you've been working really hard on your company. I see you doing everything you can to move Terra Balcanica forward, and I see your passion for it. But the thing that concerns me, and this isn't just a you thing, this is every exploration company, is just you've only got so many people that are interested in investing in exploration stage companies. And I'm curious if you've seen any shift at all in the interest that does exist in the junior markets, and how you sort of think about it from a strategy standpoint of how to raise money and move your deal forward in this environment.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, it has been frustrating. There's no other way to put it. I mean, when I speak to people and when they ask me, when did you guys list? I mentioned the date, 22nd of June, 2022, and they say, oh, the worst possible time. As if we or many other, issuers actually had any choice or option. Prior to that, we existed as a private entity for 2 years. I think we did an amazing job of defining drill targets. And when the time came to actually go and drill that, which then involves obviously much more capital and expenses, then it was a natural move to go into the and become a public company. Having said that, it has been a struggle for sure, especially considering the fact that when it comes to the work we have done so far, and that's about 3,500 meters of drilling in Bosnia. I would, again, like to reiterate the fact that from the standpoint of not having a resource, because we are just post-discovery story and indeed an exploration story that is effectively just scratching the surface, from the standpoint of grades reported and intercepts that we have, particularly on our silver target in Bosnia, we keep on being, ranked top 10 in the world. Every time Terra Balcanica puts a press release out, we are either by Junior Mining Deck or mining hub. I can't remember. There are two outfits that rank people globally or companies globally. We end up being top 10, top 15 at the very least. So having those things out on one hand and not having it reflected in terms of share price is frustrating. But again, there's no point really, complaining about it. I do hear a comment from some of the close associates to TERA, who obviously have been in the business longer than I have, that say, hey, listen, I mean, in the last 2-3 years, especially when it comes to the Canadian, junior sector, the capital has dried up and people are not really interested. I guess the actual quote is, exploration stories are not getting rewarded, which I absolutely understand. And I'm the living testament and living proof of that. However, I actually, just from a kind of a logical standpoint, scratch my head over that. Because, I mean, it actually suggests to a deeper underlying problem. If exploration stories such as ours, and especially those ones that actually have something to show for, are not quote unquote rewarded, despite what you put out, then how do we expect to have new discoveries? How do we expect to find new stuff? Because guess what? The big guys are going to grow by merger and acquisition. They're not going to go and spend. I mean, I worked for Rio Tinto. I know they have RTX exploration department. So does every other major company. And they do probably have pipeline of and top 10 porphyry copper things in the world they want to look at and whatnot. But when it comes to other things, I think we, at least historically, small junior mining cap has been key component in discovering things, and I think an absolutely essential one. Never mind my sentimental attachment to small stories and kind of a promise of a big find. I think that small, nimble, agile companies with good technical acumen who know what they're doing in the right jurisdiction, obviously at the right time. We're missing that component, the right time, is as essential part to finding new things, because you're not going to find them on surface anymore. They're going to be buried 300, 400, 700,000 meters below the surface. So things are going to be undercover. I do also probably think that if we were talking back in 2011, when the last cycle was up, that probably I would be saying different story. So I think it is about timing. There is a component of the luck. You also need to have that particular window of opportunity present to you so that you can galvanize the story and get the eyeballs. In my mind, I'm going to finish with this. I think there's no point whining and complaining. Put a big pants on. See what is it that we can do from a strategic and tactical standpoint. Keep on advancing the assets, limit the costs, lower the burn rate to minimum, and believe in the story. And I think, technically we do have so much to be proud of, given the work we've done so far and what we expect to do in the future with Terra. And I also, for example, think that the last venture of ours, or last intent to, let's say, go and try to enter the uranium exploration space in Saskatchewan, our press release from a month ago speaks of our intent to do so, is a sign of a management. And I'm not saying we're the only company. There's many others who do that. A sign of a management that's actually is looking for solutions. We are looking for ways to advance the story. So as opposed to just idly sitting back and, let's say, waiting for a gold bull market to pick us up, as it probably might, I think you want to be looking for companies that look for creative ways to advance the story. I think in our case, technically speaking, just based on merit, the uranium portfolio in Saskatchewan that we entered into a LOI to option 100% of is exactly that sort of a story.
I got one more macro question for you, and,
yes.
then we'll get into Terra, Balcanica. There's pretty big news right now that just dropped in the last 24 hours, and that is that the U.S. is going to ban the import of Russian uranium, which is going to be sort of grandfathered in, where I think that they're still going to be allowed to bring it in until 2028. And I think we're all kind of on pins and needles waiting to see how Putin responds to this, and if he's going to say, you know what, guys, no more uranium for you. What's your read on that? How big of a story do you think that this is for the uranium market or the uranium equity market?
Well, I think that Putin's absolutely going to react. There's no question about it. I mean, if we actually look at the way that the guy responds, he's quid pro quo. So he will not allow for a single geopolitical or strategic or military move to be unanswered. I mean, look at the way the Ukrainians attacked the bridge over to Crimea. Yes, attack happened, and immediately the day after, they followed up with a massive aerial bombardment of every single city in Ukraine. Same thing on a geopolitical front. So if that happens, I think Putin will react. Now, it might hurt his economy to some extent, but I think he will have to respond in some way. Key thing here is that it's actually not so much the Russia that is, I mean, Russia is obviously a great producer of uranium, but it's really Kazakhstan. And I think Kazakhstan is, from what I can gather, in the last 2-3 years, shown inclinations to lean towards West. So I didn't think, for example, that Kazakhstan will follow up and do anything when it comes to its production and export of uranium worldwide. So which then might affect the supply chains and not make the situation so dangerously devoid of supply that might come from a Russian move. I again think that, and it's not the first time that geopolitics and politics is meddled in free economy. I wish United States didn't do that. But again, obviously, these big players want to do things that hurt each other, and because it directly shows that no matter how much we want to speak of free economy is only free in as much as the big players want to make it free. I mean, if it wasn't for that, then we would have a free flow of supply and demand of all the resources and commodities and goods and services, despite the fact that there's a war going on. So yeah, I think it's going to be affected, and again, might influence the increase in share in uranium prices across the world. How much, I'm not sure. But again, Kazakhstan is the key supplier there, and I don't think it's going to make anything to further, escalate the situation worldwide when it comes to supply of uranium and yellowcake.
So let's talk about Terra Balcanica. You guys recently completed a 2,200 meter drill program at your property in Bosnia. What can you tell us?
So it's been actually 3,500 meters, 22 at one particular target called Kumavici, 1,200 at the other one called Brezheny. So this is our flagship project in eastern Bosnia, divided into two phases, two drill campaigns, 2022 and 2023. The last press release from about 2.5 weeks ago, it's really a summary. It's a sort of a way to remind the markets, but also to remind our shareholders of the fact that despite we have declared our intent to consider pursuing uranium exploration in Saskatchewan lately, that we have not and will not give up or pivot away or walk away from European assets. We have, as I said, just scratched the surface there. Potential is tremendous. This is what, and I, in that press release, intentionally put it kind of a bullet point format. Bam, 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 one after the other. High grade silver, high grade silver, high grade silver, just one after the other, for people to realize what potential the Balcanica does have. Let's not forget the fact that in neighboring Serbia, we have another extremely high grade gold silver target called Seovište. And in fact, this is what I would like to drill next. I think Balcanica in Bosnia has seen so far a relatively good share of investment and drilling. I would like to now turn my attention to Serbia for a few reasons. We have extremely high grades of gold and silver close to surface. It's a multiply stacked vein system between 40 and 60 centimeters in width, with grades that historically run up to 500 grams per ton gold and silver. I myself and our team have collected samples on surface just above those historical workings, where we have 2 ounces of gold in a sample. So 64 grams per ton gold in a sample that's about 2 kilos heavy, then 53 grams per ton in a rock chip sample on surface, et cetera, et cetera. So with about 1,200 meter program, divided into 8 holes, relatively shallow, 150 meters deep, we can certainly test this target called Seovište. And I think in the process of doing so, we're going to generate some extremely good-looking drill intercepts. And of course, add that to the existing stream of press releases that we already have in our back pocket. So over the course of the next, let's say, 4 to 5 months, please be on the lookout for quite a robust Terra Balcanica news release stream that will cover both the outstanding stuff from the Balcanica in Bosnia, as well as the upcoming drilling campaign in Serbia. So that is a testament to the fact that we are not going away from the Balkans. Very much want to do Serbia next. I think with the high prices of gold and silver, we'll add extra wind in the sail of our company. And then at some point in the summertime, turn our attention to uranium in Saskatchewan, because we didn't pick up this property just for, to flash it around. We actually did that to actually do some work.
So I want to get into that.
Sure.
You guys sort of, I don't know if pivoted is the right word, because it sounds like you're still very much in Bosnia and you're not giving up on that. I could tell from passion in your voice talking about it. But it is a little bit of a U-turn, or not a right-hand turn, we could say. Yep. You're working in Bosnia and then suddenly you add a property in Saskatchewan, which you always run the risk of investors looking at you and saying, okay, well, you're not focused. So why did you decide that you wanted to go and take this property in Saskatchewan? What does it mean for the company's overall direction?
Excellent question. Thank you. Well, this came on my desk back in December, and if you look at actually our share price evolution back in December, this was really, rough time. So this was the period of tax selling that's followed 2 previous months of I guess the entire junior market suffering. So at that point, this came kind of almost incidentally on my desk. I took a look at the geological historical work done on these 4 clusters of licenses, and then asked my colleague and a fellow board member at Terra Balcanica, how much would this deal cost? And when I actually realized that it wouldn't be that costly at all, especially at the front end, then I realized that, logistically speaking, adding on this thing, even though it might seem like we're adding something that is geographically completely separate from what the work we've done so far, and it seems like, we are pursuing something that's currently in vogue, i.e. being uranium, which is not denying the fact. I think that, there's several reasons. First, as I mentioned, affordable. $25,000 upon signing of a definitive agreement, and then shares issued as well. So in terms of actual cash issuance, very limited. It's an option agreement, so you can always walk away from it if you don't like what you see, although I think we're going to be extremely positively surprised with the stuff we're going to see there, because it is 600 square kilometers, which is almost 3 times the size of our portfolio in Bosnia and Serbia. Legacy, wealth of legacy data, and some of the uranium veterans from Athabasca Basin come along with this story. Gary Dunn and work done by Darush Geological Consulting from Edmonton. All of that is going to be put together into creating a target definition program. And I think operationally, it does not preclude us from advancing work overseas. In other words, the 1,200-meter drilling program I mentioned in Serbia, I think, can be completely autonomously and independently run to all the work that we wish to do in Saskatchewan. So as long as the funding is there, which obviously is going to be prerequisite for anything we wish to do, we can completely simultaneously and in parallel work on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, advancing these properties. There's really no more prospecting and target definition to be done in Bosnia and Serbia. We know what needs to be done. It's a matter of drilling it and then building upon that knowledge. Saskatchewan, of course, is a different story. We're going to have to first target define before we drill. And I think realistically speaking, we probably won't be able to drill anything this year. So the idea is to really raise cash for Saskatchewan, take advantage of the flow-through financing, of course, given the fact that we work in Canada, but do that at higher valuations, not at 4, 5, 6 cents. Do this when we are, at higher levels, and then execute, let's say, airborne geophysics and maybe a month and a half of follow-up field work to define these targets. I think this is almost a kind of a recipe of what every other company in the Athabasca Basin does at the moment. Plus, it's a huge swath of land. There's no way physically that no matter how big of a team you have, you can cover 600 square kilometers with any level of detailed scrutiny that you want to have, obviously. But after you fly airborne geophysics, especially if you do what we would like to do, both electromagnetic and gamma ray study simultaneously, then you can hone on to particular areas and say, okay, let me go here, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and let me look at those things. Let me send crew there. Let me walk the area and confirm that those targets are individual drill targets. So that's what we expect to do. I think, again, it is not really truly a pivot as much as a creative move, a proactive move by the management to add on to the existing portfolio of extremely good-looking targets in Europe. And ultimately, if the work ends up yielding success in Saskatchewan, which I truly hope it does, we can divest. We can always, spin this out into Terra Energy Corp and just have it a Canadian uranium explorer versus Terra Balcanica that remains and always has been a European high grade precious metal and base metal explorer.
So last question for you. If I am a shareholder watching, or I'm interested in just sort of evaluating the company moving forward, what should I be looking out for in the remainder of 2024?
Increase in share price, active field work in Saskatchewan in the latter part of the summer, drilling in Serbia in, I hope, early June. There's many outfits and ready to do. We have done all the work, as I said. It's a matter of putting 8 drill holes or 8 drill pads and salvage the high-grade gold-silver target and drilling that. Immediately put the press releases out after that, after they get processed by ALS in Serbia. Add that to the existing stream of press releases, and then have those press releases and the share price hopefully work together to get Terra to another level and away from these abysmal low levels that we have witnessed lately. I truly think, and this is not a geologist speaking in me, this is, as a CEO, that we're going to get there. I do feel, and going back to your previous question, do I feel a change in sentiment? I think I do. I, however, think that the true effects of the change in mood related to commodities will be felt only in Q3 and Q4. Perhaps good for us because this is the time when we're going to be able to put majority of these press releases out and the new results. So I think there is a renewed interest, timid though, it wasn't like somebody flipped a switch. We still have a long ways to go in terms of, having this junior sector, especially companies that do have valid assets and targets, really shine through with their share prices relative to what they have on their asset portfolio.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for hopping on here. Hopefully we get some big results over the remainder of the year, and you can keep coming back on here and telling us about everything the company has going on.
I very much enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Steve. All the best.
Thanks, Alex. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.